Good afternoon. My voice is a little hoarse, so please bear with me. Now, my graduate education is in theology, philosophy, and public affairs, not as a scientist, so my presentation might reflect that. We could, of course, talk all weekend about the relationship of AI to truth, and I'd love to do that. There is certainly an ideological impact of AI that affects how we imagine accessing and defining truth. However, to keep it feasible, I'm going to limit my attention to some cautions and recommendations regarding the role of AI-driven chatbots, specifically when their developers want to communicate truths directly associated with Christian teaching and faith. There is a variety of such chatbots. Many are developed and published by commercial entities seeking income as at least a partial objective. Some claim to be trained on tens of thousands of documents related to Catholic Church teaching, along with patristic sources and scripture. Some, like Father Spitzer's Magis AI application, are focused on a specific category of texts, and one is trained only on the Catholic Catechism. A few, including Magis AI, stand out among the rest for their educational value, integrity, quality of content, and strong technical development. One question in regard to the truth of AI chatbots is whether both the presentation and the common perception of the chatbots authentically reflect their true nature or essence. Do we perceive, let alone understand, what it is that we are actually working with? A primary consideration here is anthropomorphism, that is, the desire of people to believe or to act as if they believe that AI chatbots are real persons. As the early chatbot pioneer Joseph Weizenbaum recognized back in 1966, this is a powerful tendency and stubborn drive among people in general, including those who are emotionally healthy and those who have solid technical insight. People who seem to intensely want their interactions with chatbots to be personal. For example, a Harvard Business Review article has indicated that among all the possible ways chatbots can be used to access and present knowledge, therapy and companionship are now the top uses of generative AI. In one recent survey of U.S. teens, 72% said they use AI chatbots for companionship, half of those every day. This tendency is not only found in casual contexts. A KPMG study discovered that even at work, 99% of surveyed employees said they are interested in an AI chatbot that could become a close friend or trusted companion in the office. Chatbots, however, are neither human nor persons, and therefore only appear to sustain personal relationships, whether as teacher, advisor, friend, or something more intimate. Good sources for understanding the real difference between chatbots and persons are the church document Antiqua et Nova and Father Spitzer's writings and videos. There are some benefits to moderate anthropomorphism. For example, the user may feel more comfortable engaging in natural language interactions that have a conversational tone. The most commonly used AI chatbots like ChatGPT and Claude also helpfully enable the prudent user to choose what kind of persona to interact with, including traits like the displayed level of expertise, analytical or conversational personality, and even the viewpoint from which the chatbot responds, like first person, third person, or objective. Going further, some faith-based chatbots are portrayed as representing a specific personality. For example, there are commercially available chatbots that take the role of personal advisors regarding the faith of the Catholic Church or in regard to Christianity in general. The company Magisterium AI has created a chatbot that, among other things, offers debates and other interactions between saints, and some companies rather boldly, and I would argue recklessly, propose to convey the voice and teachings of Jesus. Chatbots that portray specific historic personalities like saints offer some unique benefits for the opportunity to interact with the authentically sourced perspective, and even the opinions of an individual revered person can often be reassuring, and if done well, here the authenticity is crucial, can expand the user's range of understanding and viewpoints. On the other hand, it's important to be aware that there is an irreplaceable value in encountering a saint directly in their own writings, communications, and perhaps especially in their stories and actions. One concern is that a chatbot's output can misrepresent the dignified, unique perspective and personality of a historic figure like a saint. Consider that the exact same written or verbal response regarding a theological topic might bear much different meaning and weight if it were actually spoken by the real Thomas Aquinas or by Francis of Assisi, due to very different personalities, sensibilities, and intentions. Yet it does not seem prudent for the developers of such chatbots to attempt to accurately and authentically mimic saints' personalities. It appears that the intensive use of such chatbots representing saints may be best limited and oriented to those who are already familiar with the saints' personalities, stories, and teachings, and who are actively studying and engaging intellectually with the content. For casual users or those new to a particular saint or theological topic, I'll propose that the output of the chatbots be strictly limited in the level of analysis and interpretation coming from the chatbot and its answers to questions. Now, some chatbots do offer the opportunity to choose the level of expertise of the information that they're receiving. We also cannot overlook the experience in the past few years that the deception of personhood and of either casual familiarity or a more special relationship with an AI chatbot can become a harmful delusion for some users. Importantly, such delusions do not only impact children and teens and are not only related to attempts at friendships with chatbots. There also have been detailed media reports of adults who interacted with AI chatbots and were led very far down intellectual rabbit holes. For example, an accountant researching simulation theory and a corporate recruiter exploring a new mathematical formula. They experienced significant confusion and distress, in part due to the very agreeable and sometimes urgent language of chatbot responses. To be clear, such extreme delusions do not seem to be common, and maybe they are partly self-induced, but even relatively mild cases of confusion, overenthusiasm, and overinvestment in interactions with chatbots are important to guard against, not least because they can interfere with careful discernment and fulfilling interactions with real people. Unfortunately, we are in a cultural environment where there is an excessive amount of excitement, anxiety, and hyperbole about chatbots being conscious. Consider that an April 2025 YouGov survey of U.S. adults found that over half believe that AI systems will become or already are conscious. This is similar to the response to electricity in the late 19th century, when many people believed there were spirits in electrical wires, or that demons lived in wired walls of a home, which would spontaneously catch on fire at times in the early days. I would urge in particular the developers of chatbots that are trained on a massive amount and variety of religious sources to think very carefully about whether their chatbot should interface with their users in the first person voice. Do we really need them to simulate a person? What seems prudent overall is active monitoring of and dialogue with chatbot users by their parents, teachers, spouses, or friends. That will enhance the experience while helping to maintain a healthy perspective. It also seems wise to avoid faith-based chatbots that are oriented too strongly to entertaining the users or holding on to their continued attention in order to support commercial advertisements or other commercial objectives. There are many possible remedies. The new California chatbot law, for example, requires that the applications explicitly notify minors that they are not human and remind them to take a break every 3 hours. Now, these are only partial remedies, but it is a start. Whatever tactics we use, Catholic chatbot developers can be at the forefront of modeling responsible education about the true nature of AI, the chatbots themselves, and their output. The next kind of truth I want to discuss is the truth of the knowledge communicated by AI chatbots. Does their output correspond factually and meaningfully to reality? Generative AI models fundamentally operate with an indirect approach to truth. They do not simply grab facts about reality from a vast database and report them or compile them for us. Their output is determined according to statistical probability and predictive calculations of whatever words or language structures will most appropriately match the expected response to a user's prompt. At the core of generative AI operations, there is no explicit attempt to replicate reality or human meaning, and there is no sensory or physical experience of reality. That does not mean that their output fails to correspond to reality or to meaning. Because the human language that generative AI models are trained on includes concepts and patterns that convey meaning to us, and that meaning often is a reference to real things, situations, experiences, properties, and accumulated knowledge, the output from chatbots does correspond to reality to such an amazing extent that we can cautiously rely on it. Now, for some chatbots, the level of reality that users expect to be represented may be the literal content of the text in which the AI model is trained, or it may be indirectly the material or social world that the texts refer to. What would be ideal is for the users of AI chatbots to receive well-prepared, accessible communications that help them clearly understand that reliability is a complicated thing with generative AI models, and to be aware of the potential limitations of a specific chatbot and its data, intended uses, and the kind of output it generates. Such explanations or cautions are not easy to craft for general audiences, but I believe they are crucial. Parents and teachers especially will want to see appropriate education and guidance communications for their children. Here's another consideration for those religiously oriented chatbots that include a wide variety of theological texts from various sources. We should remember that many theological texts include deeply meaningful knowledge that is expressed through analogies and philosophical or theological metaphors. When such texts are the data sources for chatbots, the generation of responses will often rephrase complex arguments, theories, or ideas in ways that sometimes might not be best or might not best convey the core truths expressed in the source text. Although generative AI models can recite explanations of symbols quite well, deep analogical reasoning, especially regarding novel questions and analogies, is not a strong quality of generative AI models. Possibly the best way to avoid problems here is for users to know how to write effective prompts and queries. That's not, however, a skill that everyone will have. The third kind of truth I want to look at briefly is the truth of wisdom. The truth that AI operates with is simply and only the data that it is trained on. The data patterns that it identifies are the very definition of its world when it attempts to gauge its own accuracy. Particularly with theological topics, it is important for users to be aware and to be reminded that while chatbots can produce novel, surprising, and often helpful responses, they do not reflect any original wisdom about the topic, certainly not any grace-inspired insights, and not a truly empathetic interpersonal experience and connection that we would find when interacting with a human advisor, nor do they share holistic insight, non-statistical interpretation, aesthetic sensibility regarding beauty, or personally unique reception of the source text. It seems appropriate for users of faith-based chatbots to be constantly reminded of the crucial value of such human powers and dispositions. My final comment is that as Christians, we know that there is a very personal, authoritative source of the truth of all creation, and that is God. The Greek word of the word truth, the Greek root of the word truth, refers to a compact or agreement. So truth is not just a fact that simply exists without a foundation, but is always a relationship of correspondence between the source and the person who knows the source. Ultimately, then, all knowledge is truly and wisely understood only if it is held in the context of an intentional and loving relationship with God. When we work with AI chatbots, we want to avoid the attitude that theological and moral wisdom are gained as if they are merely facts or stale principles communicated to us confidently by an impersonal authority. That said, a rich context of prayer and reflection is appropriate for any engagement with knowledge, in particular engagement with a chatbot that conveys theological knowledge. I would encourage users to prayerfully contemplate the insights they derive from such chatbots and suggest that the distributors of such chatbots explicitly encourage and even facilitate prayer and contemplation by the users of their applications. I will end there. If anyone is looking for my footnotes for this presentation, I'm happy to share those. Please let me know what you're looking for. You can contact me by email through the contact form at my website, and I'm also open to questions and dialogue. Thank you very much, and we'll talk some more.